If any of you get things like course evaluation surveys, those come from my office. We work on collecting data and student feedback to try to make sure we're doing the best thing we can as a college for you. And so that's my paying job. My unpaid job that takes usually about 20 hours a week, sometimes more for busy, is city council. So city council positions are volunteer positions in Springfield. There is no pay associated. The minimum wage, which is also on the ballot this year, does not apply to elected officials, so that we can get paid at an hourly rate of $0. And I've been on city council since 2018, when I was appointed to it, and then I was re-elected in 2019, and then re-elected again in 2021 for a 4-year term. I also serve as the mayor pro tem, so that's basically the equivalent of a vice president for the city. I feel that if the mayor is absent and that's a position that's elected by council, they select one of the members of council to do that. And before we get into the ballot question, I just want to give an illustration of different ways that we can approach policy decisions like this as individuals or as communities. And I want to start illustrating that by a quick kind of personal small scale example. So, this happens to me often when I'm at home. I hear the dryer ding, and my wife asks me to get the laundry out of the dryer. You have 2 options when you do that. One is you can do it the right way. You get the laundry out, you can fold it, you can put it away. The second option, which I'm sure none of you would ever choose, but the second option is to get it out of the dryer, put it in a corner somewhere where it's not easily noticeable, and forget about it for a while until you need something from it. It has consequences kind of what decisions we make there. So in either way, the dryer's empty. We've accomplished our immediate goal, and my wife goes to check. She sees that the laundry is out of the dryer, and I've done my job. But in the first way, I've gone ahead and taken care of the work that needs to be done, and I've solved the problem. The second way, that laundry's going to sit in a corner. The next morning when I need something from it, I'm going to have to go dig through it, do more work to find what I need, and then probably iron it. And then that evening when I get home and she's found the corner, I'm going to have a difficult conversation, and then I'm still going to have to do the work to fold the laundry and put it away. So when we have decisions, we can take the short-term easy approach and push the problem off, or we can do the right thing now and solve the problem for the future. Now, when you push problems off, they don't go away, and it tends to be that we have more work to do eventually when we have to address them. It just defers the problem to a later day. In Springfield, for a long time, we were taking the hiding the laundry in the corner approach to some issues. And one of the prime examples of that ties into this ballot issue is that we used to have our own pension system for our police and firefighters. And I'm not going to get into the details of pension. That's a whole day-long presentation by itself. If any of you want to learn about it, I'm happy to talk with you. I'm our city council representative on the pension board, so I get to work a lot with it and actuarial statements. But when you have your own pension, you need to make sure that it's adequately funded to where you have the investments coming in that can make the payments out to people who are retired, who have earned those retirement payments. In Springfield, what we were doing for a long time was rather than giving police officers and firefighters raises that requires us to find a way to pay for it now, we were adding on to their pension benefits without adding on to the contributions for them. And what that meant is it eventually reached the point in about 2008, 2009, where we had about 30% of the money we should have in our pension, which is very bad. It basically means the pension fund was almost bankrupt, and we were not going to be able to pay out retirement payments to police officers and firefighters who had served the city and earned those retirement payments. And we had to take drastic steps to fix it. And the step that we ended up taking is that the council at the time, in 2009, voted to put an issue on the ballot. It was a 3/4 cent sales tax issue that funded the old pension plan to get it up to a fully funded level. And so we've been paying that 3/4 cents for the last 15 years. And we've gone from 30% funded, from basically almost bankrupt, to now that plan is 95% funded. We're almost to the finish line, and that's an amazing turnaround in terms of the pension plan, going from 30% to 95%. So it's a remarkable success story, but it also means that over the last 15 years, that 3/4 cents generates about $45 million a year. The entirety of that money has gone towards fixing those past mistakes, fixing those problems that we deferred into the future. And none of it has been able to go to things that benefit Springfieldians now or benefits future Springfieldians in future generations. So that tax is going to expire at the end of next March. What we are asking with the question 1, which which we labeled Spring Ford SGF. And you can see the ballot language here that will be on the ballot in November. If you want all the information that I'm showing here, you can go to springfieldno.gov/election, and that will get you to this page. What we're asking voters to do is to say, we don't want to increase the amount of taxes we're paying, but we're already paying this 3/4 cent tax to fix the past pension problems. We're almost there. We need a little bit more, but we're almost there. But we want to keep taxes at the same level, have a 1/4 cent of this, a third of the amount, go towards funding the remaining pension obligations, which will be about $3 to $5 million a year, probably for the next up to 10 years. And then also go towards funding current public safety operations, which we have a drastic need of in Springfield. If you look at our police department, we have 60 fewer officers than we should. And that's because it's very difficult to hire police officers, it's very difficult to hire firefighters right now. And despite our best efforts, we have a limited amount of money in Springfield. We have the lowest taxes in the region, so we don't have many taxes don't have much in the way of taxes coming in. And the pay for our police and firefighters, when you compare it to the peer cities we're competing against, is below average. And so this 1/4 cent would allow us to finish out the pension success story, as well as put more money now into our police department and fire department for those that are serving the city and to advance public safety in Springfield and fill that 60 position gap that we have to make sure we have enough officers out on the street. And that would be permanent. The other part of this ballot question that you can see, the second half of that long paragraph, is that we're asking for the remaining ½ cent to be approved with a 10-year sunset, which means that if this is approved, that would run for 10 years, and then if we want to renew it, we would go back to the voters at that point, and voters would have a chance to say whether we would do it or not. And then that ½ cent would go towards funding capital improvements and community neighborhood initiatives that are found within our Ford SGF comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is a document that is created by the citizens of Springfield to outline their vision for what they want Springfield to look like over the next 20 years. What initiatives we want to accomplish, what new things we want to build, what park improvements we want to have, what road improvements, sidewalk improvements, all the things that affect our daily lives in Springfield. And it's an excellent plan. I would encourage you to go look it up. I'm happy to answer any individual questions about that afterwards too, or talk to anyone who wants to talk about it. It is an excellent plan. It has no funding stream attached to it currently. And that's been an issue in Springfield in the past, is that we come up with really good plans. We have citizens who are very involved in shaping what we want the future of our community to be, but we struggle to pay for it. We have very low taxes. We don't have a lot of money in the city to pay for it. And so we have to work on trying to find external sources where we can to pay for parts of it. And we're pretty successful with that. We get a lot of federal grants. You may have seen in the news recently, just a few months ago, we got another $25 million from the federal government to complete some gaps in our Ozarks Greenway Trail system and connect major trails to each other to make that a true kind of transportation network for people who maybe don't want to drive but want to walk or bike or use their scooter or anything else on those trails. So we do our best to seek out that federal funding and the state funding, but we don't have that on an ongoing basis, so it's dependent upon us winning these grants. This would mean that every year, right now we have about $30 million a year. That number should grow as we're able to continue to grow our economy. But we'd have $30 million a year to put into things like better parks for everyone to live here to enjoy, like improving roads, improving sidewalks that people use to get to school or to college or to work, like improving stormwater situations where we have neighborhoods that flood if there's moderate rain, and we can address that with stormwater infrastructure improvements. Like addressing housing. Housing is a huge issue in Springfield right now. We have far fewer available housing units at any price point than we have demand for. And when demand exceeds supply by that much, the prices go up. And the more the prices go up, the more people get priced out of the market. It's a difficult cycle. What this would let us do is invest in programs that are proven to be successful, like Restore SGF, that provide assistance to people looking to get into their first house, helps them buy their first house. It helps people who are in houses who are struggling to invest in their homes, to make necessary repairs so that they don't fall out of the ownership market. They're not kind of searching for houses, and to increase the housing stock in Springfield so we can balance out that supply and demand and have price housing go lower. So if we can also, with this, invest in some major catalyst projects that will have an impact on the entire community. Things like finishing out the art museum. We're in the process right now of doing the first 2 stages of the master plan for the art museum. This will let us build out the full master plan for the art museum and make it an amazing community amenity and also educational resource for Springfield. It would let us move forward on the Lake Springfield master plan, which we got federal funding and private donations to fund the creation of a plan for Lake Springfield. The power plant that was there closed. We don't use it anymore. We don't need it. That means we have some huge buildings that can be adapted or reused into something else. We have a lake there. We have several hundred acres of beautiful green space surrounding that lake. That can be a great recreation destination that can be enjoyed not only by people who live in Springfield, but also can be a way to attract people into town to come visit Springfield and shop. And when they do that, those people are spending money. They're helping our sales tax revenue. And because we are dependent upon sales tax to operate our city government, the more things we can do to bring people into Springfield, whether it's just coming for the day to shop at Costco or Buc-ee's or Target, or whether it's coming and staying for a weekend and going to the little theater downtown and going to Wonders of Wildlife. Those people then leave, but their money stays here and their money is invested back into the community to make it a better place for those of us that live here. So those sorts of catalyst projects, they will provide more jobs. They also provide more revenue that we can invest into things that people who live here care about without people who live here having to be the ones to bear the cost of it. So that, in a nutshell, is the question that's on the ballot. This is a question that's been thoroughly studied. City Council put together a citizens commission that had about 30 members representing a variety of different businesses and organizations, and they all had different opinions. And if you've ever been in a room with 30 people, or even less than that, trying to come to a decision on a difficult issue when they all have different opinions, it is hard. This language that you see here today was unanimously approved by all 30 of those people. We had some difficult discussions. We had things that people disagreed upon in terms of the outcomes of this. But at the end of the day, everybody in that room agreed that this is the right direction for our community. And I got to serve on that Citizens Commission as the council representative. It's also been endorsed by groups such as the International Association of Firefighters, Local 152, which is the local firefighters union, Springfield Police Officers Association, which is the police union, to groups on the business side like the Springfield Contractors Association and the Chamber of Commerce, representing a number of local businesses and organizations. And so this is, I think, a unique opportunity where it's rare that a city has a chance to make progress on things as important and as costly as public safety, and also on things that invest in the next generation without having to pay anything more in taxes. If this passes, we have that money to invest in the future. You're not paying any more than you are now, and our tax rate remains the lowest in the region. You can't go to any other city in this region without paying higher tax. So that is briefly kind of my explanation and my pitch for this ballot issue, but I would love to answer any questions you have, because I think that's always the most valuable part of these presentations is the chance to get to talk about what you care about the most. Yeah?
Hold on, is there a mic?
I can run it back.
Okay. Okay, so Missouri has always been a red state for a long time because many Missourians usually prefer tax cuts. How would you persuade Missourians that we need to increase funding at the same time? Do you have a plan to make sure that taxes are even, just to make sure we don't go too high?
That's a great question, and I think that speaks to what's oftentimes different about local politics too, in that for city council, we're not partisan. We don't have letters by our name that dictate how we vote, because these are not partisan issues. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or anywhere in the political ideology. You don't want your car to hit a pothole when you're driving somewhere. You want, when you flip the switch in your bathroom, you want the light to come on. When you turn the knob in your shower, you want the water to start flowing. When you call and when you have an emergency, you want the police or a fire truck or an EMT to be there quickly. These are not partisan issues. These are issues that affect how we live, but it's also, the quality of life issues. People of all political stripes enjoy going to the park. People of all political stripes, need to have a job, need to have good paying jobs, need to have access to housing. And so when I'm talking to audiences, when I talk to the group of people in that room, the 30 people for the commission, or any number of groups we talked about, this is not a partisan thing. This is something that matters for all of us, and this is something that I think we can all see the need for having these necessary services and these necessary infrastructures for where we live.
I see some great issues being addressed with this money that is available from the sales tax. What I see missing here is the rampant homelessness issue in Springfield. What held the city council back from using this money to address that?
Matt, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so the question about whether this could be used to address the homeless issue in Springfield. So I think a couple parts of that. One is the housing approach to this. I think does directly address the homeless issue, because for the majority of people, if you look at the data from the Ozarks and homelessness, that is our coordinator of care in Springfield and the surrounding regions. The majority of the causes of people entering homelessness are basically evictions, getting trapped into a cycle where you have too many bills to pay, and when the rent falls off, then you lose your housing. So addressing housing and addressing projects that encourage investment in more housing stock and making more of that available does directly address kind of the root cause of homelessness. The more available units we have, the lower we can get the price point for people. That prevents people from going into a state of homelessness. It also makes it easier for people who are experiencing that right now to get out with the supports available for them. I think another part of that is just that it's not an issue that so far we've been able to solve with just money. We have put a lot of money recently into homeless efforts, including money for non-congregate shelters, both transitional kind of rapid rehousing types of shelters. We put a lot of money into the community partnership with the Ozarks in creating a purpose-driven center to replace the existing one we have, which does not do any services. It's basically just an unsupervised gathering place that doesn't provide people access to help to get out of homelessness. We've invested in things like vouchers for individuals to pay for rent or pay for hotel rooms as temporary housing, those things help in the short term, but they don't necessarily address the systemic causes. They don't address the number of available houses that we have in Springfield. And so, to me, we need to continue those short-term kind of immediate efforts, but this takes a focus on what's going to produce the longer-term structural changes, I think, that will help address that problem.
So it says park projects, right? So what does that entail? Does that mean more gated? Does it mean it's under construction, or little Timmy won't trip over a $5 soda can or something like that? Or what does park projects? What does park projects mean?
So park projects now would be envisioned as a variety of different things. They could range from things as simple as kind of deferred maintenance projects that exist as a backlog for our park system. So we have the Springfield Green County Park Board, runs the parks in both Springfield and Greater Green County outside of the city. And they had a tax that went for maintenance of parks that went away several years ago and hasn't been replaced. And so they have a lot of deferred maintenance needs. If you go to enjoy many parks, you may see structures that are not in great shape. You may see playground equipment that is not in great shape. Good example for me, you may drive by this on National and Sunset. You can see McDaniel Park. Playground equipment there is not good. It's used pretty frequently by the neighborhood. It's out of date and it's not in great shape for the kids to use it. So some of that is that deferred maintenance projects, but some of it is also making kind of major investments in parks in terms of things like, right now, through federal money, we're making investments in the Cooper and Killian soccer, softball, and baseball complexes. And that does two things. When you have those major kind of park attractions, one is that people who are here local, who play sports themselves or have kids who play sports, are able to use better fields and benefit from the investments. But we can also then use those facilities to bring in major tournaments, to bring in people from out of town. And then those people are coming, bringing their families, staying for a weekend, shopping here, supporting local businesses, putting that money back into our community that we can invest in it. And so oftentimes parks can also be an economic development tool as well as being a quality of life amenity. But it's a range of things, but it's I think if you can think about the parks you use, you can probably think of some needs that you've seen there.
I kind of have a two-parter question. My first one is that if this doesn't get passed, if there were any direct alternatives that the city of Springfield is wanting to continue with. And secondly, you had mentioned that there were ways, or you needed to find external ways to gather money to help with the funding. And I was wondering if there were any direct external uses that the city of Springfield uses.
So great, both of those great questions. On the first side, there's really not a good alternative. You always have to have a plan B, but if this doesn't pass, we're looking at having to cut probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $11 million from the city budget next year, which can't be done without cutting services, without probably making cuts that's going to affect people that work for the city. And it also means we're not going to be able to invest in any of this stuff in the future. So at that point, we'd have to think about, is there a way we can at least figure out how to fund that gap, but probably doing all this kind of new stuff is off the table. On the second question, we'll also continue to explore external funding. And I think a good example of that is the city got $41 million from the American Rescue Plan Act that was passed and signed by President Biden. And that federal money came to the city. I was the chair of our council ARPA committee that looked at how to use it. We immediately took several million of that and put it towards pandemic response, public safety, and immediate needs that we had. And with the remaining money, it was about $30 million, which is roughly what we're going to be taking in each year. We were able then to identify projects and work with partners and fund things like the Cooper and Killian, the soccer, baseball, and softball work. That was funded through ARPA with matching funds from the state government. We're doing Jordan Creek, which is a major project downtown that will have big benefits for downtown. That was partially ARPA money, matching some state and some additional federal grants. The homeless services projects and work that we invested in. That was, again, local ARPA money, matching other grant funds that we're able to achieve. And so, we have always had a culture in Southwest Missouri, I think, in general, of we're going to do more with less. So we do that at the college, too. And so we'll continue to do that work. One of the criteria that was established by the commission for what projects we fund is, can we get matching funds, whether that's from the feds, whether that's from the state, whether that's from private donations, which we've also been able to get for some projects lately. So we're always going to try to see, if we have $1 million, we're going to try to turn it into 5 by leveraging that into matches that we can get, and we will continue to take that approach.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you, sir. That was Matt Simpson of the City Council. Lucky here at OTC that we have access to Matt, his computer-like knowledge of all things, especially plumbing question 1. Gee, of course, he had a hand in planning. Now we move on to the rest of the ballot. Now, show of hands if you plan on voting between now and November 5th. Show of hands. And we're going to need more of those up in the air in the coming days, okay? Because, just for the record, as Caden said earlier, you can vote now. And you kind of should. Because we have a historic election in front of us. I guess every election is historic, but some elections are just more historic than others. This coming election, we are about to elect a president who will be a first in American history. We have never had in America's 230-year history a female president We have never had, and I don't mean to dunk on the Republican candidate here, but we've never had a president who was also a convicted felon. So either way, this is going to be a brand new experience for America. Even though we've already had the Trump experience the first time around, there's a good chance. And I've been asked several times, and to be honest with you, if you've looked at any of the polling, and if you're as concerned about the future of America as I am, you look at it every hour on the hour, it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip, folks. This is not an election where I think, well, I think this candidate has a leg up. Who has a leg up? It's absolutely no clue. This right now is where the polling is telling us. All the red states you're looking at are right now comfortably put them in the Trump column. All the blue states that you see, you can put comfortably in the Kamala Harris column. She's currently, if you just stop right now, those states get you to 226 electoral votes. The Republican states get Trump's 219. So that's a neck and neck race right now, which brings us down to about, how many states is that? 7 states? 7 states. And several of these states, such as Nevada, are already voting. And the returns are foggy. We don't quite know what to make of them yet. And we won't know anything. Not even, by the way, on election day. This election is going to be so freaking close. We probably won't know who the president's going to be for many days after the election. All votes are tabulated. We are not just voting for president, we are also voting for the vast majority of Congress. Our Congress is bicameral. Bicameral, that means 2 chambers. House, of course, and the Senate. And by the way, that means every single member of the House of Representatives, including our guy named Eric Burleson, will be running for re-election. Every single member of the House is running for re-election. 1/3 of the Senate is running for re-election, which includes one of our 2 guys, Josh Hawley, once again a Republican, running for re-election for the very first time. He is a freshman senator, and if he's successful, will be a sophomore senator. I don't know what you call the second round. So that's where we stand right now. And let me show you what Congress looks like. Do you know the division of Congress right now? So this is what Congress looks like. The blue dots are Democrats. The red dots are Republicans. What do you notice? It's like 50-50. As close to 50-50 as you can without it actually being 50-50. Right now, I mean, you could barely see it, but Democrats hold a very slight advantage in the Senate. Republicans hold a very slight advantage in the House. And do you look at the polling? Do you believe polls? Yeah, maybe not. But if you believe the polling that you're looking at right now, polling suggests that the House is very likely to flip from Republican power to Democratic power, while also saying the Senate is going to flip from Democratic power to Republican power. That has never happened in American history. Not once in American history have both chambers flipped in opposite directions. So just FYI, if that happens, whoever wins the presidency is not the only historical thing that will be happening. Now with that in mind, we are also voting on state level offices. Here is what they are. Of course, we are voting for governor, lieutenant governor. Have you ever heard of that position? That's basically vice governor. They just dress it up with lieutenant governor. Kind of like how Matt Simpson is essentially vice mayor, but they call it mayor pro tem. We're also voting on Secretary of State. That person is in charge of elections in Missouri. State Treasurer manages Missouri's tens of billions of dollar budget. And the Attorney General is the person who represents Missouri in the court of law. So whenever you sue the federal government, whenever the federal government is suing you, however you plan on enacting and prosecuting people across the state is run by the Attorney General. Those are the offices here in the state. And by the way, not just politicians. I should also mention, I should say this is all executive branch stuff. You're not just voting for executive branch, you're also voting for the legislative branch. Missouri has what we call a General Assembly, which is Missouri's Congress. Nothing can have the same name. Everything has to be confusing. But anyways, Missouri's General Assembly is also bicameral. It also has a House of Representatives, and also every single one of them are running for re-election. It also has a Senate, and half of the Senate is running for re-election this year. Just FYI, that is happening. Now, in addition to that, we also have Greene County measures as well. There's Greene County, Missouri. This is actually what Greene County looks like. That big yellow mustard splotch is Springfield. And there are several Greene County positions that are up. Several Greene County positions that are. All 5 of these are Greene County positions, and we vote on them, believe it or not. So you have a commissioner, this person enforces county policy. The sheriff, any part of Greene County that's outside of the city, they're in charge of law enforcement. The assessor is in charge of valuing property. The treasurer is in charge of managing Springfield's budget. The public administrator is somebody who helps represent certain people who can't represent themselves in court, such as mentally disabled people, deceased estates, minors. So I have called all 5 of these offices, and the person I most enjoyed talking to was the Justin Hill, who's the current treasurer, and as you can tell, running unopposed. And I asked him, why is your office an elected office? Justin Hill's answer, and I quote was, I don't know. So I don't really know why we vote on these positions, but we do vote on them. And believe it or not, I talked to my classes recently. I was driving through a different city in Missouri, and I saw signs saying, vote for this person for coroner. Some counties vote for coroner. Okay, all right. I suppose we need to dispose with, like, is there a Democratic coroner and a Republican coroner? Oh, I won't have any Republican coroners in my county, so I don't know what that's all about. But just FYI, if you're wondering, why the heck are we voting for that? They don't know either, but we do vote for them. All right, I will mention one last thing before we get to the ballot items, and that's the fact that we do vote for judges some of the time. There are 2 Supreme Court judges, 2 appeals court judges that we'll be voting on, and there are 10 different circuit court judges. So those 3 levels, there's 14 combined judges you can vote for. Missouri has its own website. It's called yourmissouriJudges.org, where you can see how the Bar Association rates each of these judges. For the record, the Bar Association rates each of them as substantially meets criteria, which means, according to the Bar Association, they're all super qualified. But then again, I have a couple of friends who are like, vote no on all judges. So like, whatever you choose to do. But you can go to this website, you can see the surveys that lawyers who have dealt with these judges have had to fill out. All right, so let's talk about some of the ballot items that we face. Let's do it. Starting with, I want to remind you that there are 3 different types of ballot issues on a ballot. A lot this year, a lot of them are amendments. And when you see Amendment 2, Amendment 3, those are proposed changes to the Missouri Constitution. Missouri has its own constitution. You'll also see propositions. Propositions are not looking to change the Missouri Constitution, which for the record is enormous. It's 250 pages long because we keep adding stuff to it. But propositions were proposed changes to Missouri laws. Not quite the Constitution level, but the law. And as we talked about with Matt Simpson, there was also changes to Springfield's city charter. Springfield has its own constitution, what we call the city charter. Anytime we would like to change it, like we want to with question 1, or at least like Matt Simpson would like to with question 1, that appears on the ballot as a question. So let's get started. First things first. Let's talk about Amendment 1. There is no Amendment 1. Elections are fun. Amendment 2. Amendment 2. This is the actual ballot language for Amendment 2. I'll only read some of it. Do you want to amend the Missouri Constitution to allow the Missouri Gaming